Roswell, Alien Interview, Chapter 16, Errol Departs. Matilda O'Donnell McElroy, personal note. I remained at the base, mostly confined to my quarters, for another 3 weeks after Errol had been incapacitated by Dr. Wilcox. Once a day I was escorted to the room where Errol lay on the bed, under continued surveillance by Dr. Wilcox and others. Each time I went to the room I was asked to try to communicate with Errol again. Each time there was no response. This saddened me a great deal. As the days continued, I became increasingly more certain and distressed that Errol was dead, if that is the right word for it. Every day I reread the transcripts of my interviews with Errol, searching for a clue that might remind me of something or help me in some way to re-establish communication with Errol. I still had the envelope in my possession with copies of the transcripts that Errol was asked to sign. To this day I don't understand why no one ever asked me to return them. I suppose they forgot about the copy of the transcripts in all the excitement. I did not offer to return them. I kept them concealed under the mattress of my bed all the time I remained at the base, and have kept them with me ever since then. You will be the first person to see these transcripts. Since Errol's body was not biological, the doctors could not detect whether the body was alive or dead unless it moved. Of course, I knew that if Errol was not consciously animating the body as an ISBY, the body would not move. I explained this to Dr. Wilcox. I explained this to him several times. Each time he just gave me a patronizing sort of smile, patted my arm, and thanked me for trying again. At the end of the 3rd week, I was told by Dr. Wilcox that my services would no longer be needed because it had been decided by the military to move Errol to a larger, more secure military medical facility that was better equipped to deal with the situation. He didn't say anything about where the facility was located. That was the last time I saw Errol's doll body. The following day I received written orders signed by General Twining. The orders said that I had completed my service to the U.S. military and was officially discharged from further duty, and that I would receive an honorable discharge and a generous military pension. I would be also relocated by the military and given a new identity with the appropriate documents. Along with the orders, I received a document that I was instructed to read and sign. It was an oath of secrecy. The language of the document was full of legalese, but the point was very clearly made that I was to never ever discuss anything whatsoever with anyone about anything whatsoever that I had seen, heard, or experienced during my service in the military under pain of death as an act of treason against the United States of America. As it turned out, I was placed into a federal government witness protection program, except that I would be protected from the government by the government. In other words, as long as I stayed quiet, I could stay alive. The following morning, I was placed aboard a small military transport plane and flown to a relocation destination. After being shuttled to several locations for short periods, I eventually ended up in Glasgow, Montana, near Fort Peck. The night before I was scheduled to board the transport plane, I lay in bed, contemplating the whole affair and wondering what happened to Errol and to me. I suddenly heard Errol's voice. I sat bolt upright in my bed and turned on the light on the nightstand. I looked around the room frantically for a few seconds. Then I realized that it was Errol, the ISBY. Her body was not in the room with me, of course, and it didn't need to be. She said hello. The tone of her thought was plain and friendly. It was unmistakably Errol. I did not have the least doubt about that. I thought, Errol, are you still here? She answered that she was here, but not in a body on Earth. She had returned to her post at the domain base when the doctor and the MPs attacked us in the interview room. She was pleased to perceive that I was well and that I was going to be released unharmed. I wondered how she escaped from them. I was worried that they might have injured Errol by the shock machine. Errol said that she was able to leave the body before the shock was administered and avoid the electric current running through the body. She wanted to let me know that she was safe and not to worry about her. I was very relieved, to say the least. I asked Errol if I would ever see her again. Errol reassured me that we were both ISBYs. We are not physical bodies. Now that she had located me in space and time, we would always stay in communication. Errol wished me well, and my communication with her ended for the moment. Roswell, alien interview, postscript from Mrs. McElroy. Editor's note: the following message was enclosed in a separate envelope marked "Read me last," together with the original letter, the transcripts, and the other notes of explanation I received in the envelope from Mrs. McElroy. This is what the message said. The other documents in this envelope are the end of the story as far as what happened back in 1947. However, several months after the government got me settled at my final relocation destination, I continued my communication with Errol on a regular basis. It has been almost exactly 40 years since the crash at Roswell. Since then, it has become obvious to me that I have been able to communicate telepathically with Errol for one reason. I am one of the 3,000 members of the Lost Battalion. At this time, all the members of the Lost Battalion have been located on Earth as a result of the Domain Anunnaki mission and their use of the Tree of Life detection device. Through my communication with Errol, I have recovered some of my memory of lives I've spent on Earth over the past 8,000 years. Most of these memories are not especially important compared to the long backtrack of events, but it has been a necessary stepping stone to regaining my awareness and ability as an ISBE. I can also remember some dim patches of my life in the Domain Expeditionary Force. I was a nurse there too. For the most part, I've been a nurse over and over and over again down through the ages. I stick with being a nurse because it's familiar to me, and I enjoy the work of helping people, as well as the members of the race of biological beings in the domain whose bodies look more like insects than mammals, especially their hands. Even doll bodies need some repair once in a while, too. As I remember more about my past, I realize that the rest of my life is in the future. Eternity is not just in the past, eternity is in the future. At this point, I'm still not able to fully return to the domain. I am sentenced to eternal imprisonment like all other ISBEs in the living hell called Earth, until we can disable the old Empire force screens. Because I won't keep my biological body much longer now, I am intensely aware that very soon I will be recycled through the amnesia process of the old Empire and stuck back into another baby body to start all over again without any memory of what went before. As you know, members of the Domain Expeditionary Force have been working to solve this problem for thousands of years. Errol said that even though the Domain has located all of the Lost Battalion officers and crew, the success of freeing them depends on the ISBEs who are already on Earth. The Domain Central Command cannot authorize any personnel or resources at this time to conduct a rescue mission, as this is not the primary mission of the Domain Expeditionary Force in this galaxy. So if ISBEs on Earth are going to escape from this prison, it will have to be an inside job, so to speak. The inmates will have to figure out how to get themselves out. Various methods of recovering the memory and ability of the ISBEs have been developed over the past 10,000 years on Earth, but none have proven to be consistently effective so far. Errol mentioned that the most significant breakthrough was made by Gautama Siddhartha about 2,500 years ago. However, the original teachings and techniques taught by the Buddha have been altered or lost over the millennia since then. The practical techniques of this philosophy were perverted into robotic religious rituals by priests as a self-serving instrument of control or slavery. However, another major advance occurred recently. An acquaintance of the commanding officer of the Domain Expeditionary Force space station is an ISBE who had once been an important engineer and officer in the old Empire space fleet. He became an untouchable himself about 10,000 years ago and was sentenced to Earth for leading a mutiny against the oppressive regime of the old Empire. The engineer was trained in advanced scientific improvisation theory thousands of years ago. This man has applied his expertise to helping the Domain solve the apparently unsolvable problem of rescuing the members of the Lost Battalion as well as the ISBEs on Earth. Careful observation and experimental analysis of the mechanics of memory in ISBEs by he and his wife, who assisted him, led to the realization that ISBEs can recover from amnesia and also regain lost abilities. Together they discovered and developed effective methods that they used to rehabilitate their own memories. They eventually codified their methods so that others can safely be trained to apply them to themselves and others, without detection by the old empire thought control operators. Their research also revealed that ISBs can occupy and operate more than one body at the same time, a fact that previously was thought to be uniquely limited to officers of the domain. One example of this fact is that the engineer in a previous lifetime on Earth was Suleiman the Magnificent. His assistant was a harem girl who rose up from slavery to become his wife and rule the Ottoman Empire with him. Simultaneously, she inhabited another body and ruled her own empire as Queen Elizabeth. As the Queen of England, she never married because she was already married to the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. In a later life, he was incarnated as Cecil Rhodes. During his life as Rhodes, she was again a princess, this time from Poland. As such, she pursued Rhodes unsuccessfully toward the end of his life. However, in their next incarnation, they met again, were married, had a family, and again worked together successfully all of their lives. Several other notable examples of this phenomena were observed. For example, the process of refining steel was invented by the same ISBE who inhabited two bodies simultaneously. One was named Kelly, who lived in Kentucky, and the other was a man named Bessemer, who lived in England. They both conceived the same process at the same time. Another example is Alexander Graham Bell, the inventor of the telephone, which was invented by several others at the same time, including Elijah Gray. The telephone was conceived concurrently in several locations around the world all at once. This was a single ISBE of such tremendous energy and ability that he was able to operate several bodies in several different locations while conducting complex research work. Thanks to these revelations, the domain has been able to return some of ISBEs of the Lost Battalion to active duty on a limited part-time basis. For example, two young girls who occupy biological bodies on Earth now are at the same time working as active members of the Domain Expeditionary Force on the Asteroid Space Station as operators of a communication switchboard. These operators relay messages between the Domain Expeditionary Force and the Domain Command Headquarters. Recently, I myself have been able to resume some of my own duties for the Domain Expeditionary Force while continuing to live on Earth. This is not an easy task, however, and can only be done while my biological body is sleeping. It makes me very, very happy to know that we may not have to stay on Earth forever. There is hope of escape not just for the Lost Battalion, but for many other ISBEs on Earth. However, all ISBEs could be helped to become more aware of the actual situation on Earth through the information in this envelope. This is why I sent these letters and transcripts to you. I want you to get these documents published. I want ISBEs on Earth to have a chance to find out what is really happening on Earth. Most ISBEs will not believe any of it, I'm sure. It seems too incredible. No reasonable person would ever believe a word of it. However, it only seems incredible to an ISBE whose memory has been erased and replaced with false information inside the electronically controlled illusion of a prison planet. We must not allow the apparent incredibility of our situation to prevent us from confronting the reality of it. Frankly, reasons have nothing to do with reality. There are no reasons. Things are what they are. If we don't face the facts of our situation, we're going to stay under the thumb of the old empire forever. The biggest weapon the old empire has left now is our ignorance of what they were doing to all the ISBEs on Earth. Disbelief and secrecy are the most effective weapons they have. The government agencies that classify the enclosed transcripts as top secret are run by ISBEs who are nothing more than mindless automations covertly ordered through the hypnotic commands given by the old empire prison operators. They are the unknowing slaves of unseen slave masters, and all the more enslaved by their willingness to be slaves. Most of the ISBEs on Earth are good, honest, able beings, artists, managers, geniuses, freethinkers, and revolutionaries who have harmed no one, really. They are no threat to anyone except the criminals who have imprisoned them. They must find out about the old empire amnesia and hypnosis operation. They must remember their own past lives. The only way this will ever happen is to communicate, coordinate, and fight back. We have to tell other people, and they have to discuss it openly with each other. Communication is the only effective weapon against secrecy and oppression. This is why I'm asking you to tell this story. Please share these transcripts with as many people as you can. If the people of Earth are told what is really going on here, perhaps they will begin to remember who they are and where they came from. For now we can begin our own release and rescue with words. We can be free again. We can be ourselves again. Perhaps I will meet you in person, with or without a body, somewhere in our eternal future. Good luck to all of us. Matilda O'Donnell McElroy. End of Mrs. McElroy documents. Small Zeta Reticuli Grays and the release of the Cooper material. I'm reading from thewatcherfiles.com. The release of the Cooper material. There are many hazards regarding the exposing of information regarding UFOs. It has not been until quite recently that any degree of safety at all has been available for people releasing such information. Were it not for the fact that Cooper released his information so far and wide and it filtered to so many people at once, newspapers, legislators, heads of state, people in important positions all over the world, he would have suffered severely. But because it was scattered so quickly, it would have been fruitless to silence him after the information had been released. It would only have added to the credibility of the information. At the beginning of 1990, there was still an active debate in certain circles about what to do about Cooper, whether to deal with him in a threatening manner or simply discredit him. A campaign planned to use approximately $1 million worth of effort to discredit him. The money was to be used to imply that Cooper made up or gathered information from various sources and threw it together for a personal financial move. It was not to come through normal media channels, but through UFO magazines and newsletters in the form of articles and exposés, and through UFO groups, most of which are controlled. Alternate UFO scenarios were also to be released, so that by the time 1990 ended, many different scenarios would be floating around. People would be unable to decipher which one was true and which one wasn't. As long as interest was shown in the Cooper material by only a small group of people who happened to be curious about UFOs, there was to be no action taken. But if Cooper's material was taken seriously by credible people, these would be the target for the efforts to discredit him. Enormous amounts of previously highly classified information had been brought out into the open. We now have a situation where individuals, instead of being forced to remain silent for fear of assassination, are not afraid to tell what they know. Too many have seen, too many have witnessed. They cannot all be silenced. This is the beginning of the end of security surrounding this situation. Therefore, the following information shall be released. The species classified. The present number of alien types having contact with Earth right now is 9, with 7 being relatively permanent and 5 being influential. Contrary to the information that government might release, not all UFO inhabitants are friendly representatives from the Galactic Space Federation. Zeta Reticuli Grays. Small Zeta Reticuli Grays come from Zeta Reticulum, near Barnard's star, which is a neighboring star system to the Orion. They are very short, about 3.5 to 4 feet tall, grayish silver in color, and have no sexual or digestive parts to their bodies. They are created through a cloning process of alien genetic engineering. They are an ancient race and have reproduced themselves for thousands of years. They have very limited facial features. They have large eyes, a very small slit for a mouth, and no nose to speak of. The eyes are large, almond-shaped, and black. They have evolved beyond the sexual reproduction process so that all sexual organs and their digestive tracts have totally atrophied. They are no longer capable of eating or indulging in sexual activities. They are a close relative to the insect family. The Zetas are the ones involved in the cattle mutilations. They absorb certain substances from parts of the cattle that stabilize them during the cloning process. This can be placed under the tongue to give sustenance and stability for some time. It is a substance that comes from certain mucous membranes, the lips, nose, genitals, and rectum, and also from certain organs. These glandular substances serve as nutrients in lieu of eating. Resting the substances under the tongue is not the only way to get nutrition. You may have noticed that the cattle mutilations generally result in all the blood being drained from the body. The Zetas have in their bases canisters and vats in which animals and human organs float along with a purple liquid to hold these parts in suspension. The Zetas swim in the mixture and absorb the nutrients through their skin. They use hydrogen peroxide in both the absorption and elimination process. The hydrogen peroxide also helps to preserve the liquid and organ mixture to keep it from spoiling. They have no digestive tract, and they eliminate through the skin. To eliminate, they need to pass the substance through some part of their body, much the same way plants eliminate through their skin or outer shells. They use hydrogen peroxide for helping with that elimination as well. The Zetas have also been referred to as the little green men because they tend to turn a shade of green when they have not received sufficient food. When they are in this state, they are very vicious. The cloning of these aliens can be done quite quickly, reproducing synthetic replicas. They have a technology that is much beyond that of humans, and that has led to the agreements with the United States government whereby exchanges of these techniques could occur. The Zeta Reticuli Greys are not masters of their own fate. They are rather subservient to a reptilian race of people from their home planet. The Zetas seek but are fearful of freedom from their masters. They seem to have some desire to work closely with humans in an effort to retain the freedom that they have on Earth, which they have never experienced before. In their desire to retain that freedom from their reptilian masters, they would hope to play a role of being masters here on Earth, or at least having enough control so as to be safe from slavery by any other species. The Zetas are of two social classes, one being hawkish, the other more dove-like. The more dove-like Zetas are more refined and capable of more business-like behavior towards humans, while the other type is more abrupt, blunt, and crude in their directness. The Zetas desire the help of humans in an expected future confrontation with the reptilian masters, who are expected to follow soon within the next 20 years. This refers to the so-called asteroid that is on its way toward Earth. It is housing approximately 30 million reptilian aliens. It has, however, temporarily diverted its path as it moves into the constellation of Draco. Bellatrax Greys. Short. The short gray, which is shorter than the Zeta Reticuli, is from a star system near the Orion constellation, near the shoulder of the figure, in a star called Bellatrax. The short gray, which is shorter than the Zeta Reticuli, is from a star system near the Orion constellation, near the shoulder of the figure in a star system called Bellatrax. They are shorter, much like dwarfs, about 1.5 feet tall. They are more indirect but just as vicious towards humans as the Zetas. Both the Bellatrax Greys and the Zeta Reticuli Greys are related genetically from the same root race and look very much alike except for size. Orion Greys, tall. The other type of gray is the tall big-nose gray. They have large noses and stand about 7 or 8 feet tall. They are based in the Aleutian Islands, and recently were witnessed in a park in the eastern part of Russia. These creatures are hostile, but less vicious towards humans. They tend to try to influence through the use of political controls. They have certain powers and technologies that allow them to perform actions that appear miraculous. In the Russian incident, a woman whose leg was deformed was picked up by these Orion Greys and was released thousands of miles away. Her leg was healed. The aliens did not heal her leg. They transplanted a new leg onto her body. The Orion Greys give the impression that they are benevolent towards humans, but they are heavily into genetic engineering. They use humans as guinea pigs to conduct various experiments. They have grown arms and legs and other body parts in a formless matrix made from human flesh. A leg may grow out of a torso. Hands might grow from the middle of the torso's stomach. All this is done through injecting of certain genomes into the flesh and the application of electromagnetic charges. In this way they can grow human body parts to help deformed or injured humans, or for their own purposes of food and sustenance. They are interested in controlling the masses of Earth through certain negotiated agreements with those in power. All Greys. The Greys are all to some degree influencing human history at this time. The nature of the Greys, especially the Zeta Reticuli and the Short Greys, is that they do not have deep emotional feelings or compassion. They are very calculating, cold intellectuals, and see humans as being inferior. They look at humans much the same way a farmer looks at his cows. They understand the passions and compassions of humans to the degree it is observable by them, but they do not have feelings. These aliens are on the equivalent human level of cannibals. They see humans being an inferior species. They are carnivorous. The Zeta Reticuli Greys feed upon glandular secretions of humans and are quite capable of killing people for that secretion, or abducting humans and extracting the secretions for themselves. The genetic manipulation is one way that aliens see as evolving and saving their dying race. In a sense, humans are suddenly the saviors of the souls of the aliens, but at least it is a way that humans may have an influence on the aliens. This is not the first time that a civilization has attempted to absorb an enemy rather than defeating it. While the enemy invader may assume that they are taking over, they are in fact being absorbed. The Tartars invaded Russia and within 100 years were absorbed into Russian society. Pleiadians. Of the five, those from the Pleiades are entities who are distant relatives of humankind. They are related to and are the forefather race of the genetic creation of humankind. They are of a higher spiritual development than most people on Earth at this time. They have a kinship towards humans and are essentially the only aliens who can be trusted by humans. They have blonde hair and fair skin. They are allied with the Intergalactic Space Confederation. That doesn't mean that all entities of human appearance, spacecraft, can or should be trusted. For there are humans from this planet, from various governments, who are working for the Zeta Reticuli Greys. Some from the Pleiades are subordinates to the Greys, having been abducted as children or offspring of the abductees. They have been raised and trained by the Greys as servants. The humans from the Pleiades have made several Earth contacts, but in recent times have suspended visitations to Earth. The government was told that this was because of a space law that states that the destiny of a people shall not be interfered with unless it threatens themselves or others in the galaxy. If the threat of nuclear war became strong enough, these entities indicated that they might interfere, but only to the degree of reducing that threat. That could also set up a conflict between the Pleiadians and the Zeta Greys, to whom a limited nuclear war is seen as beneficial. Since the humans have made an agreement and a pact with the Zeta Greys, even though there were warnings by the Pleiadians against this, there is now a hands-off policy. The Pleiadians feel that the humans have made their bed and now they must lie in it. It is not likely that humans will be rescued from the planned events simply to make things easier for humans to overcome the masters they have agreed to work with. Draco Mothmen. In the constellation of Draco there is another race of entities which has in the past visited Earth. They are 8-foot tall, dark, nocturnal aliens who appeared around graveyards and parks. They have red eyes that glow in the dark and wings to fly. They are referred to by us as Mothmen. They are also the source of legends of the past relating to gargoyles and Valkyries. Even some quantities of vampires have been taken from the qualities of this creature, the ability to fly and nocturnal habits. The Mothmen have no particular influence on Earth at this time other than as causing panic and a cause for curiosity. They are mostly hidden underground and do not wish to attract attention.